All right, thanks everybody for joining in on the call. This session is basically just going to be a little bit about the different rules and then the process on how to make a team and what the elections might look like this year due to the fact that it might be virtual. Um, I think this year, specifically coming, is going to be very, very tough on the New Students Union. If you were somebody who was thinking about being on the SU because you think it might be fun or it might just be jokes and games, I don't think this year would be the year for you. I think maybe another year. But if you were somebody who was very keen on being in the SU because you want to make a difference and you want to be able to represent your fellow colleagues in a very good way and a way that would be very impactful for years to come, I think this year would be probably one of the most important years of SU in RCSI history, just because of the fact that a lot of rebuilding is going to have to be going on because of the COVID situation, obviously. A lot of protocols and policies are going to have to be made, and the students are going to be heavily involved in that. So I think if you are involved in the SU this year, you'll be able to make an impact on things that would last for many, many years to come. So even if you weren't thinking about being on the SU this year, maybe you were thinking about doing it for maybe the year after or something, I'd say sit down and really think about it. Think about the impact that you can make, and it might change your mind. You might want to actually run this year. So basically how we're going to run this is all the other SU members are going to talk a little bit about their roles, and then Tim is going to talk a little bit about the actual election process. So without further ado, Carl, you're going to tell the people about your brilliant roles.
Okay, hi guys. Hope you're all well. So I'm just going to talk about the role of Societies Officer and Vice President a little bit. So I'll start off with Societies. And generally you're a mediator. That's, I suppose, the most important part of the job, is to kind of mediate concerns between the societies, whether it's the presidents or just general committees, and student services, and kind of vice versa. It's kind of important to have an intimate knowledge of, I suppose, how societies are run in RCSI, that kind of pink book, and the rules and regulations in there, and see, so that you can help societies out without necessarily relying on student services too much, or the other way around. You'll be responsible for organising the sign-up day and Freshers Week. There's a lot of work with Jackie in Student Services, who's the society's coordinator. So, there's a lot of teamwork there. And I suppose just in general liaising with Student Services on general policies and trying to change their minds on specific things, or, trying to just trying to kind of communicate that way. And then there's a lot involved with the cultural officer, who's also involved with societies and kind of helping out with culture diversity month and stuff like that. But I'll talk about that. As far as vice president is concerned, you have to go to academic council with the president. That's it's an important meeting, and Javid will talk a bit more about that. And you go to different meetings and stuff like that. But the main bit about vice president is helping out everybody else. It's kind of teamwork. It's being around the place and, asking if anyone needs a hand on specific, tasks or, things that they want to do. There's a lot of kind of behind the scenes committees and stuff like that that you would be on, or that you'd be kind of a part of. Everyone is kind of on different ones like that. But there's kind of a lot of work behind the scenes that doesn't necessarily get seen out by the general student body. And I also was kind of responsible for keeping a look on the calendar that we had to make sure that events weren't clashing and stuff like that this year. But I mean, that's up to whoever to continue. And that's basically it for Vice President Societies. I really enjoyed my year. It was a lot of hard work, but rewarding, and kind of getting to meet with different people and getting to work with members of staff and students was really enjoyable. So best of luck to the teams running and all that jazz. So that's me done.
Jody.
Okay, it's me. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Jody, and if you don't know already, I am one of the events officers along with Justine. So just to start off, events in general, it's a very, very fun one to do, very rewarding, but it is a lot of work, and there's going to be times where you want to pull all your hair out. But I think if you enjoy event planning, it's definitely rewarding in the end. But yeah, there's a lot of careful planning and behind the scenes work that goes on, and it takes time. So it's definitely a job that you have to be organized for, and if you're not organized, you got to learn how to be organized, because it's definitely, there's a lot more steps than you'd think. So for example, college ball was started to be planned in July of the previous year, so definitely lots of planning. I would say the main kind of themes for the year would be freshers is a big one, and then you'll work a lot with societies as well to make those events happen. And then college ball, again, definitely a really big one, probably the most planning I've ever had to do in my life. And then you'll also help societies create their own events, and attend their events as well. It's always good to show support. And then you can also have free reign to create your own little initiatives throughout the year. So you do have a budget, and you have to converse with your team about that. But you do have a lot of opportunity to do what you want as well. You also, with the society's officer as well, sometimes there's going to be conflict between societies. You can be there to mediate as well. Sometimes events clash or people have different ideas, and definitely you have to be there to help out. Lots of societies will also want your budget to help contribute to their events, and everyone's always going to be asking for your budget, and it's a good thing because we want to help, but you have to be able to make a system for that. So that's another thing you have to work with. I would say SU in general, great experience, one of the best things I've ever decided to do. When you're in it, sometimes you're like, why did I do this? It's so much work. But then, at the end, it's always rewarding. And I would recommend it to literally anybody who is interested. But I would say there's a few things you have to keep in mind. It will probably affect your grades, and you have to be prepared for that. I think all of us can probably agree that, you're going to have less time to study, you're going to have less time to do things, but if you're passionate about it, it's worth it. People will blame you, people will also praise you, so there's a bit of both, but you have to learn how to stand your ground and be polite, and try to be there for everybody, no matter who comes through the door, because you have to be unbiased. So yeah, you learn how to deal with lots of different kinds of people who you like, people who you don't get along with. You learn to deal with conflict, situations where you don't agree with, both with staff and students. And, not everything will happen the way you wanted it to, or the way you set out it to happen, like things in your manifesto, things might not always happen, but you really learn how to adapt as a team. And I think that's why teamwork is so important. Having a good team that everyone gels really well is very, very important, because I can't even tell you the amount of times this year where my team has stepped up to help me with my job and vice versa, and it's so important to be able to get along. So yeah, I would definitely recommend running, and very, very much good luck and stay safe.
Hey, hi guys. I think I'm next to speak. I'm Anya. I'm the welfare officer. So just in terms of the welfare role, it's a bit different to the other roles in that it's more behind the scenes kind of a role. You're kind of working a lot with Compass and with students individually rather than in groups. So you liaise a lot with Sinead, NIFA, and Compass, and they'll become an extension to your team. They're really, really helpful. They're really, really great in Compass. They're the kind of people that you have to send people to if you don't know what to do. So people are going to come to you with very complicated issues and things, financial issues, mental health issues, things like that. If you know where to guide them, that's grand. But a lot of the time, then again, you're not qualified as a social welfare worker. So Sinead and NIFA are really, really helpful in advising you and in advising the other students. And so you work a lot with the Sexual Health Committee. If anyone here is interested in the welfare role, I'm not sure when the Sexual Health Committee elections are, but I would strongly, strongly advise anyone to apply, to be honest, because they really help me a lot with, the condom distribution that is happening at the moment. That we are obviously having a lot of issues with that, and we've been trying to come up with solutions for that throughout the year. And they're a great team that helped me kind of figure out solutions, and there's a few staff as well that you'll be in contact with, like with that, with Orna Tai is, she's great with helping with solutions and things. And with that as well, you'll be in contact with the state who distribute the condoms to the college. Obviously, we only wanted to do that just before the whole COVID crisis occurred. So whoever takes on welfare will be taking on that role, and I'd be like willing to help you kind of transfer to that role and to show you the workings of everything. So you'll be in contact a lot with the HSE as well in terms of ordering the condoms, and just in general, they're always asking for reports and things you have to fill out. So I do that quite often. You'll be also doing a lot of work in terms of like events, so Mental Health Awareness Week, Health and Wellbeing Week, Sexual Health Awareness Week. There's a lot of weeks like that that you just have to be at events and help organize them. It does take up a lot of your time, but it's very fulfilling. And if you like the role of welfare and if you're interested in stuff like that, then it shouldn't be like a job that shouldn't really be enjoyable for you. Yeah, that's kind of it really. A lot of it is just behind the scenes stuff. So a lot of it is kind of, your role will be different. Every welfare role, I'm assuming, can be very different. But I'll be willing to guide you the whole way along. And there'll be a team of people behind you. It won't just be yourself. Which is why it's really important that the whole SU is a team, really. Like I wouldn't be able to do it without the rest of the team. We all kind of rely on each other. So yeah, I really, really recommend it. Just working on the SU, it was the best decision I ever made. And I really enjoyed the year. So yeah, I strongly advise anyone to do it, but to make sure that you've a good team, and yeah, just enjoy it. And yeah, be prepared for your grades to drop a little.
Justine?
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Justine. I hope you guys are doing well and you're safe wherever you guys are. So I'm the other events officer on the student union along with Jyoti. And as the name suggests, we plan events for the school, and this obviously includes like things like Freshers Week, College Ball, and other events that we initiate. So definitely for those two, those are like our bigger events for the year. And I would say that our job is quite seasonal, like in the sense that the peak is when, like, around the time of the event, and then after that, like, kind of dies down, and then it starts again when we have a new event coming up. Of course, like, apart from those two events, you're free to like introduce any other event that you want to bring in, like so long as like within your budget. And apart from that, we also collaborate with other societies and clubs and help them out with their events. And a lot of our job includes talking to external vendors. And I think the most important thing for this job is that you must enjoy planning and organizing events in general, because there's a lot of logistics that come with this job. And obviously, apart from that, we also have to do like office hours and meetings every week. And for example, during summer, Jyoti and I had to call a lot, and I had to call a lot of people and vendors. I'm from Singapore, and I had to call a lot of people back in Ireland during summer. So just prepare to like have a lot of your time taken up. And I guess to conclude, this was a really, really fun experience, and it's definitely one of the best things that happened to me, and I have no regrets. And I think, of course, at the end of the day, even though we're all 8 of us are individually given like a role, like events, societies, whatever, but at the end of the day, we all help each other out, and there's always like a crossover. So it will never always just be like, oh, I'm only events and I only do events. You're always going to do a little bit of like what everyone else does as well. Yes.
Niall, can you hear us?
He might have a little bit of Wi-Fi difficulties, but he should be here
In
soon.
Galway?
Yeah, Galway is great for Wi-Fi.
Al, you want to go ahead then while we wait on Niall?
Hey everyone, my name is Al. I'm the cultural officer. Basically, the cultural officer concerns is Cultural Diversity Month, which is in March. You will get to organize the biggest events in the college, which is International Night. Unfortunately, we didn't do it this year because, COVID-19. whatever. Also, you get to liaise with societies and with student services regarding the cultural booths. You know, we have 6 or 7 cultural societies, which is CAS, MISA, PIPS, CSOC, AMSA, SIMSA, and IRSOC. Also, you get to introduce any new events or like any societies events for Cultural Diversity Month, which is basically the second semester in March. That's the main concern for the cultural officer. Also, promoting the idea of cultural diversity and trying to get people to participate and represent their like own cultures, even if they don't have any society to represent their cultures. So basically, you promote the idea, you introduce any initiative or any new event to get the people to participate and get the chance to represent their own cultures. Also, you will have some cultural conflicts. Students, societies, they'll come to you. All you can do is basically in all the parties involved in that conflict and liaising with student services and with the parties involved in that conflict. And you may get help from societies officer, as scholars say, because it's basically you're dealing with cultural societies. And also in terms of cultural conflicts, you can get help from our welfare officer on it. So that's it, I think. So the main thing is just CDM, cultural diversity, and any new events in mind. And regarding the experience, SU, 100% recommend it. Just do it.
Good man. Now, the big dog Niall, we cannot hear you. You need to unmute yourself. Okay, I think you're there.
I don't know if we
Could
can.
anybody? Niall?
Stop.
No.
No, it's not. No sound now.
Do you have headphones?
Yeah, he is IT.
Okay, I think Tim's coming on now, so.
Float over your picture there, Niall. There should be a mute or an unmute
No,
thing
he's
in the top
unmuted,
right
but there's
corner.
no sound.
You can mute it, but there's something
Oh.
wrong with the mic, I think.
No, yeah, I think someone's wrong with his actual mic.
Yeah.
Oh, also, guys, I think Zoom has a 40-minute limit. Sometimes it kicks you off and sometimes it doesn't. So if this meeting ends in 10 minutes, just check your email. I'm going to send another link if that happens, okay? I don't know where Tim is. He said
Look, I'll just talk about mine then, and then Tim will come on.
Okay.
So from the president's point of view, I think is as much a supportive role as it is a leadership role. In terms of the supportive aspect of things, you're definitely going to have to follow the lead of some of your colleagues very, very often. For example, like with Cultural Diversity Month, you would have to follow the lead of the cultural officer, or for Freshers Week, you have to follow the lead of the event officers. So in that kind of regard, it's just to make sure and support everybody, make sure everything is running on track. I guess when your leadership role starts to take place is when you have to have a general overview of everything that the team is doing, kind of making sure that everything is running on track, make sure everybody's hitting the timelines that they suggested that they would be hitting, and just make sure that things are moving smoothly. And I guess the main role of the president is to do with dealing with the staff. As president, you're going to have to be in a lot of meetings. As Carl said, you're going to have to be in academic council, the Medical Health and Sciences Board, and quality meeting, and a lot of others. And in a lot of these meetings, you're going to be by yourself, and it's going to be you and professors, heads of the college, CEOs. So you're going to be in a very intimidating environment, but it's going to be on you to represent the views of. So at that point, you're going to have to be able to speak up for them and to be able to challenge different people's opinions. So if a professor says something that you don't think is in the best interest of the students, you need to not be afraid, and you need to say, like, look, I don't think that's the right decision here. This might be the better way of dealing with it. And the first time you start doing that is very intimidating, because a lot of these people are grading you and you're kind of scared that they're going to fail you for saying something stupid. But it's something that you have to grow out of quick and start getting brave very, very quickly. In terms of the actual meeting and liaison, a lot of the things going to fly right over your head because it's stuff that doesn't really relate to the undergraduate level. But the best thing that you can do is do your research on different projects that the college has going on. Normally, before meetings, you would be given like a stack of papers. I would highly recommend reading it and learning about it, so that you would be able to go into the meetings and like represent the students to the best of your ability. As Anya said, you will take a hit on your studies. Sometimes you'll want to study, but you have to do office hours, or you have to deal with this project or this parking pass, or somebody has a problem here. And you have to definitely prioritize your time, and you might have to sacrifice some study hours or some socializing hours, but that's the deal you make. Another thing is, in terms of actual students, a lot of people are going to come with a lot of problems towards you. You have to be able to deal with it on the fly and be able to advocate for them if they are right. People are going to blame you for a lot of things. You need to have thick skin, not just as the president, but as any member of the SU. You're going to get blamed for a lot of things that's not your fault. You just have to take it on chin and keep moving forward. And another thing is, I guess, the experience itself so far is that the SU gives you a lot of opportunities, especially as a president. You get invited to a lot of different things that that you definitely wouldn't be as a regular student. So I definitely say is good for the opportunities, and definitely take any opportunity that you get. Make the most of it, because you tend to get to develop a lot of good relationships. You tend to get good relationships with the staff and the students alike. So definitely take advantage of it. And as I said before, this year is going to be the hardest SU year for a while. So definitely it'll be a good learning experience, and I would highly recommend that anybody on this video call should definitely think about it and think about making a team. So that's it from me. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, Niall, take it away.
I still don't know if I can be heard. Can I be heard?
You can be heard.
Oh, sorry. Okay, finally. Okay, so as IT officer, your kind of chief, I suppose, responsibility is in the lines of communication, making sure everything is kind of that is going on gets put out to the college, and make sure everyone knows kind of what's going on. So the ways you do that is you have your student newsletter, which is done every week, and you kind of have to make that, it's your responsibility to make that as kind of interactive, I suppose, as you can with the college. I know a lot of people will tell you they don't read it, but they do, and you kind of, it's your responsibility to, I guess, make sure that they do read it. So that's one way of one of the methods of communication. And then another one would be through the college's social media. So we had Instagram, Twitter, and there's Facebook, but this year we tried to do the YouTube videos. If the next SU, that was something that was quite well enjoyed. So if the next SU were like into, I suppose, that kind of means of communication, all well and good. But yeah, it's just majorly a communication role. And yeah, if you enjoy that, the IT officer role is good for you. So yeah.
Good man yourself now. Tim, are you on the line? Tim's Wi-Fi is terrible. Okay, he is here. Sorry, Tim.
Oh, you're on mute, Tim.
To the person who asked the question, I will elaborate about it right after Tim says his part.
All right, I guess that's my turn. Good morning. Hold on, Stark. That's better. Morning, afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. But my name is Tim. I'm the education officer. So I'll give you all a quick rundown of kind of the roles and responsibilities of the education officer. So in short, the job is to support the educational programs for the students at RCSI. So that requires a baseline knowledge of basically how every program works to some degree. So medicine, pharmacy, physiotherapy, kind of a general idea of what entails each program, the ins and outs, kind of the class years and the goals and milestones for each of the class year. The most of the work kind of revolves around just supporting the education. So there's a lot of work that's distributed between the education officer and, for instance, the class reps. So the education officer is also in charge of the class reps, but a lot of the information comes up through the class reps, and then kind of key personnel to know at the college include the folks at student services, a lot of the folks in the SARA office, because they're often the ones that you'll be emailing or liaising with regarding educational issues and scheduling, which seems to be the kind of top problem that comes up a lot. In addition, it's also kind of handy and good to know like the academic folks in SARA office. Jacinta Burke is one, the career development people, Ebong Joseph are another group of administrators that are helpful to know in this role. And then in addition to that, some of the year leads and cycle directors for each of the programs. So that way you kind of have a connection to each of the program, and you kind of have the people on call that it would be important to know and to liaise with. So those are kind of the big ticket issues. One of the biggest things under the purview of the education officers is the class rep elections, and then holding monthly student council meetings, which involve the SU, the class reps, and the sports union. So making agendas, kind of dealing with those issues, scaling them up to the various people that are necessary is kind of part and parcel of the job. In addition, there's a couple of committees that education officer, well, I myself sit on that aren't necessary, but they're certainly helpful. The Student Engagement and Partnership Committee is one, because they have a lot of educational initiatives and programming that it's helpful to have kind of your opinion as education officer on. There's other kind of more voluntary ones. I work a lot with the people in the what's it called, like the USMLE Diagnostic Committee, about what they do, providing the diagnostic examination and the step one for anybody from the US who's gonna or who wants to write step one in the USMLE licensing exam. Yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
All right, good. So we might just answer one or two of the questions, and then Tim, you might just explain the election process. But to the mystery student who said, could you elaborate when you say it's going to be the hardest for a while? I think it's because of the fact that the whole COVID situation kind of blew everybody off course. We with the SU got ahead of it, and that's why we have to be involved in things like a daily COVID meeting, literally every morning at 10 a.m. my time and 5 a.m. Tim's time. Me and him have to be involved in a meeting that kind of talks about plans that or protocols that the college is putting in place on how to deal with students during this time. I suspect that in the months to come, especially in the new academic year, there's going to be a lot more of that, especially on new policies on how to deal with students if a situation like this should ever repeat itself, as well as dealing with the education, the curriculum of the different years, because now you have students who might be having to do rotations in summer, and obviously they're going to need student union input in situations like that. So I think it's definitely going to be a lot more work involved in the new students union. But with that being said, we will be involved more so than previous years, because we would kind of have to give some advice on how different meetings are going to run, just to make sure that the new students union is able to like properly handle themselves when they get elected into power. So it might be like a 3-month handover period where we kind of try and impart as much knowledge as we can onto the new students union. The next question, and I think everybody else might have opinions on this as well, is how did you come, Aoife, how did you come up with a team? Did we know each other before the SU? The answer to that is no, we did not know each other before the SU. I knew Jyoti and I knew of Al. Everybody else, I didn't really know them. And I think that's very important. When you're making a team, do not go and look for your friends. Yeah, having friends is nice, but don't look for your friends. It's not a popularity contest. look for people who are capable of doing the job. I would have asked a lot about, one of the first people I started asking was Carl. I asked a lot about him because I saw him around, I saw him in international night. I knew that he was well spoken, he was outspoken, and he was very much involved in different society aspects of things, which is why I kind of pegged him for maybe a society's person. So that's why I started. That's when I asked him directly. So I think that's kind of the approach we took for all the members of the team. So from the time me and Carl was cemented there, me, Carl, and Jyoti, we started looking at other people that we might want to be part of the team. And then from there, we just started building the team. But we did not know each other from before, and we were not friends. Are we friends now? Kinda, maybe. Yeah.
Debatable.
Okay. Debatable. Tim, you want to talk? Well, I mean, if anybody else has anything they want to say about that.
Can I
Yeah,
just
I just
add one thing? Oh, sorry, Anya.
Are you okay?
It's just
Okay.
something small. Like, I think the one reason, well, there's plenty of reasons, but a reason why you shouldn't be picking your friends is it will, like, when you're working with somebody who you've picked for a job, you will work as friends, but your friendship won't get in the way of you doing your job. So if you're like choosing a team where, you know, a lot of them are your friends, you know, you don't want to affect your friendship, and because that will probably happen at some stage. You know, there's a lot of stress. So, but at the same time, you know, when you're picking a team and you're genuinely looking at people for a specific job, you're very objective about it. You know, so like some people on this team just fit into their roles better than they would in others because of that's why we chose them in the first place, rather than saying, oh, I like this person in general. It's no, we know that they're capable of doing their job. So I think it's tempting. It's really tempting to just, you know, make a team of people you know and you're friends with. Like, trust me, like we had a really hard time finding the right people the whole year. Like, even close to the deadline, we were still trying to find people. And I'm glad we went with people we did rather than just picking people that we know, because it's so important at the end of the day to have a competent, capable team. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
I just wanted to add, like, Javid, I remember, messaged me in January of last year about it, and I didn't know who Javid was. I had no, like, prospects of being on SU ever. I never even thought about it. So if anyone is, like, obviously you are all thinking about making a team, but if you don't have a team at the moment, like, don't be scared to message people and ask them if they'd like to join. Ask people who you know, like, are prominent in friend groups, if people know them, or if you think they'd be great for the job, like, ask people who might know other people as well, because, and you might get an answer straight away, like, you still have a little bit of time to make a team, but don't be scared to ask people, because I let it stew in people's minds for a while, because obviously at the start I wasn't ready to jump into SU, so I had never even thought about it, but after thinking about it for a while, I realized, like, it will be a great opportunity. So you can definitely take the initiative yourself to go out and make a team, and don't be scared to do it, because it's very possible. And yeah.
I just want to add on top of that, just I know it's like we're kind of killing this question, but like it is a very important one. Like Javid and I were talking in October, and we decided, we were like, yeah, go on, we'll do it. And then we were kind of building a team up until, like, you know, a week before the deadline. And I would say, you know, if you don't have the kind of the joy of, or the, I suppose, the luck of having somewhat of a team formed, so that you can all put your collective minds together to you know, to see, okay, who would be good in pharmacy, who would be good in physio, who would be good, you know, as an education officer, who would be good as a cultural officer, and kind of branch out in your own little things, little kind of groups, and see if you can, you know, latch onto someone. I would advise even talking to societies. If you're, say, for example, you don't know anyone in pharmacy because you're in med and you haven't really mixed a lot, I would even message the pharmacy society or the physio society and see if they know of anyone who has interest in that kind of a thing, and then you can go that way about it. But yeah, definitely get people who'd be good for the job, because it is a lot of work. Like, it's great, and we're kind of talking about how much work it is, but it is, you know, a lot of fun. But you do need to be able to do your job, and you need to be able to make sure everyone else is doing their job as well. So yeah, it's best to get someone who's good for the job.
Yeah, hi. I'm just gonna add on to that point as well. So when Javid asked me, I like as along with everyone else, I didn't know a single person on the team. And I think it's very important that you understand what you're signing up for. So when Javid asked me, I took over a week to tell him my response. And I remember I met up with him and I asked like 100 questions about every single thing. So I think it's very important that, you know, like if someone does approach you, just don't be afraid to ask, like, you know, what this job entails, and like, you know, what's gonna happen, you know, if I take on this role. So just don't be afraid to ask, just ask anything, because at the end of the day, this is a very, very important job, because, you know, you're going to work with this team for a really long time, and, you know, you're going to, you know, you have a lot of responsibility in your hands. And so just don't be afraid to ask about, you know, what the job or role entails, and just make sure that, you know, you understand what you're getting yourself into, basically.
Tim, you want to answer the
Yeah.
question about?
Yeah, I can answer the kind of the next question that came up, and then will I talk about what comes next? I can answer some of the next questions because it's all kind of folded into the process
Might as
moving
well.
forward.
Might as well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So the first question that just popped up was about if you can be a class rep and on the SU. Now, there's no rule in the SU Constitution or any of the governing kind of documents that says that you can't do both. That being said, I think a lot of us on the panel here would agree that the SU is quite time consuming, and it's quite a lot of work. Any of the roles, and they have a tendency to ebb and flow at different times. So it would be a big ask for one person to do both an SU role and also the roles of a class rep, because the class rep kind of role, at least the way I've experienced it as the education officer, is kind of a slow burn of things that happen on a daily basis and throughout the entire year. And SU has these big spikes of work and jumps, and certainly there's a lot of kind of weekly duties that are required. So it's not like illegal to do, but it's just not advised to do, because they're both pretty hefty, time consuming roles. So you might in that position if you were kind of between both. Certainly it can become complicated depending on the role that you're in. For instance, if you're the education officer and you're the kind of head of the class reps and you're a class rep, like that kind of would be an iffy situation to kind of hammer out. So it's just not recommended that you would be on both, and it would be best advised to pick one or the other. So that was a really good question, a toughie, but I'll hammer out the next two questions, and I'll tell you all kind of about the timelines moving forward for how this whole nominations elections period will work. So great. Yeah, so basically there's basically, the SU election runs the same way every year. We're kind of in an extenuating circumstance with the coronavirus situation, but once we have a number of teams that are formed and that they have the 8 members in each of the roles kind of outlined, each team that wants to be considered writes a manifesto, which is basically a document that outlines who each team member is, what role they will be in, and some of the initiatives that that team would wish to work on or put forth in the coming year. And so basically your manifesto is your booklet of ideas, things that you want to change or improve on. And then the manifesto is usually outlined by role. So you kind of have some initiatives and some things that the education officer would do, that the societies officer would do, like projects that the welfare officer would like to do. So each role gets to tackle a piece of what they'd like to do. And then certainly there's kind of the overall platform for what your team of 8 kind of stands for, or like what the things that you guys would like to see as a whole change at the college. So the first thing, once you've gotten your teams sorted and each person on the team is given a role, would be to get your manifesto, and we're hammering out the dates, but basically we'd like to have team manifestos in by the beginning of May. Following manifestos in a general SU election, we have about a week of campaigning. If we were at college, you'd usually see kind of daily activities being held by each team to kind of get to know the student body, to bring people out, to get to actually campaign, tell people your ideas in person. Certainly, we're all on certain restrictions and we're in different parts of the world. So we have decided this year that we probably will hold a virtual campaign, which will utilize a lot of social media platforms to push your message, to get your manifesto out there, to engage RCSI students in one way or another, so that a lot of what would be happening if we were still at college is still happening. You're still getting your ideas out there. You're still engaging with the student body in a certain way. And there's some rules and regulations around campaigning when we're at college. So we're currently working on a document that will outline what can and can't happen during this virtual campaign period. That way it's fair and it's evenly kind of set out, so each team's getting as much access as possible to all of the students of RCSI, engagement to answer questions, to kind of like push their messaging. And we've decided that that period will be about 10 days. And then after the end of campaigning, all of the voting usually happens online, and that's taken out of the hands of, everything is kind of taken out of the hands of the current SU, and the quality office runs the vote in a very official manner. So we'll give them the team names, we'll give them the people on the team, and then they'll send the entire student body voting links in which each student will have one vote to decide which SU team they would like to be the new SU. And then we've also decided that voting would occur over a period of 10 days to make sure that every student, wherever you are, time zone wise and in the world, gets a fair chance to vote on who their new SU might be. And that's kind of the framework for how we foresee elections going forth this year, with the doing a virtual election, kind of doing a virtual campaign, and working it that way. And then just to tackle some of these questions in the chat, last year there were 2 teams that ran like kind of against each other. So certainly there has been more, but it just matters as to a team being full with 8 people and each role filled in each team. So we can't have any incomplete teams, but we can technically have as many teams as possible. As long as they're full teams of 8, and as long as everybody submits a manifesto by the deadline of early May, then any team, any complete team would be considered in the election. Yeah, I guess that's my bit. Do you want me to do the next one?
I have a question here from David. I think he messaged me privately, but is asking about about joining the SU in Final Med. Does it take too much of a hit on your schoolwork, or is it manageable? It does take a hit on your schoolwork. Like it definitely will take a hit on your schoolwork. But I mean, I guess it depends on how you're able to manage your time and how involved you're willing to be in the SU. I think if you're going to be on the SU, I think you should be committed. So I think you're going to have to sacrifice some things. Like sacrifice sometimes that you want to go out, or some hours of study. I don't think it's going to affect you that much to the point where, okay, if you're a first class honor student, you're going to drop down to a bare pass. I think you'll still probably be able to maintain your average. It's just you're going to be a little bit more stressed. From my personal experience, that's how it was. But I kind of enjoyed being on the SU, and I kind of enjoyed the fast-paced fighting with this one, fighting with that one. It's kind of like a break for me. I think it would be is definitely doable. And about the second part of that question you asked about like doing interviews in America, because you have it in January, I assume. That's fine, regardless of where your role is. There's definitely going to be several other people who could pick up for you and have your back. If I was supposed to go to America, then Carl would have taken my place, or someone else would have taken my place on different meetings. If you're in a different role, like education or events, for example, then somebody else will be able to pick up your role. So you don't need to worry about that. I think it is doable being in ParaMed or being in NEA, just be able to manage your time properly.
And coming off that, there's a question here in the chat that's actually very good, and something that I overlooked in the bit that I just said, but I'll answer this and add to what Javed said, that the makeup of the team has to include one student from each school. So in your group of 8, it can be however many, but there has to be at least one medicine, at least one pharmacy, at least one physio student kind of represented. That way you're truly a students' union that represents the entire entity of the college. There is a question here about postgraduate officer, which is a really good question. There actually is a separate postgraduate students' union. So the PGSU is elected within the School of Postgraduate Studies, and they're another group of 8 students. They have a similar structure, but they're all made up of postbacs, and they kind of deal mostly with postbac life and postbac issues, or postgraduate life and postgraduate issues, and kind of liaising with the School of Postgraduate Studies. So this would only be for undergraduate students. So you'd have to be considered an undergraduate at the college. So for pharmacy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, physio 1, 2, 3, final physio, first foundation year, or like med 1 through final med, or gem 1, 2. So those are kind of the students that can make up the undergraduate SU, and those would be the students that we'd have to limit the roles to in terms of teams. But kind of piggybacking off, again, this is another question that was asked, and then piggybacking what Javed said, there really is no restriction on which year can do what job. Kind of a little going back a little bit earlier to what Anya, Jody, Kahal were saying, is it's probably best to just find the right person for the job, and then kind of have a discussion and a chat, and be realistic as you're making your teams and reaching out to people to say, you know, this is something that we did as a team, like what year are you going to be in? Like, do you know what's going to be on your academic calendar for next year? Are you prepared to handle whatever that is, plus whatever is going to be on your plate as SU? And as Javed said, it is a lot of work. You spend a lot of time writing emails, going to meetings, working on projects, going to committee meetings, kind of setting things up, planning, organizing. So it eats up some of the free time you would have otherwise had. So that means you either have to find alternate time to study, or you don't have as much time, depending on what kind of person you are, but it's certainly something that's manageable. The teamwork aspect is critical to this, in that, like Javed said, if you are, for instance, in SC1 and you're on placements, on peripherals, you know, outside of Dublin a lot, and a lot of what your role requires is stuff for you to be in Dublin, and you can't make it back to Dublin, like you just have to have that conversation, and then, you know, you'll have hopefully a good working relationship with your team that you can get someone to cover for you, and it kind of goes both ways for any roles. So there's no kind of rule to kind of say, oh, like somebody in SC1 should do this job because X. It just is kind of whoever suits best, based on experience, based on personality, based on their want to do a certain job. But again, in making your teams and kind of discussing as we come up to that manifesto type deadline, is being realistic about what your personal schedule is going to be like in the coming year. And the whole point of this is to give you guys a sense of what it takes to be on the SU, and what's expected of you, both from the students and both from the side of the college, so that you can be more realistic about what role you might take on, and you know, kind of ahead of time how many hours and what type of work it involves.
Yeah, I just want to come in on that one. Just to echo, like Javed he's obviously final med, And we having this conversation, you know, when we were deciding who would be kind of vice president, I knew that I would be in IC3, which is notoriously kind of less, I suppose, academically challenging, allegedly. And, you know, I knew he would be kind of like getting pressured at this, you know, coming up to this time of year, you know, with his final exams and stuff. So we kind of worked it out that way, that we would have a vice president who could, you know, kind of take over if needed be at specific times. Now, Javid was really good at managing his time, and it rarely needed to happen, except for like office hours or something kind of trivial like that. But we all were quite honest with each other. We knew we would be busy at certain times and knew we wouldn't be at other times. So yeah, Tim was right on that. And just on the whole pharmacy and physio rep, the members of the Students' Union that are from pharmacy and are from physio function as that, as well as their roles. Anya did a great job of kind of speaking for pharmacy in different meetings that we had, and Niall the same with physio. So, you know, we made sure to get those concerned funneled through, whether it was even through me as societies officer, where the two societies came to me, or whether they came to the other two directly, or we just heard it on the street. It's that kind of, you just need to be kind of clued into different areas. What's the next question?
Oh, just gonna hop in and say something here, because I thought of this earlier and I completely forgot to say it. It's something actually someone asked a long time ago about, can I be a class rep and whatever. Just like building on that, not necessarily class rep, but you know, a lot of you will probably be part of societies in general before, you know, joining the SU. And like on top of that, I would try to stay away from being on other societies for a few reasons. One, definitely the work, like as Tim said, you know, it's just too much. But also, you know, as an SU, you're supposed to be neutral and you're supposed to be unbiased. And of course, you know, you being on another society doesn't necessarily mean that you're biased, but to other people, it can come across that way. And even, you know, given my previous experience with different societies, people already have that bias about me. Probably they might, you know, given I was on this society, they might think I'm more biased to that society, you know. So by being on a society, as another society, as an SU member, it can sometimes come across as, you know, if you might be more biased to somebody else. But even besides all that, I would just say it's too much work. And you don't want to put your education at a risk either. So yeah. And then I think, are there any more questions? Oh, are any of you looking to run or rerun for the next election? We decided as a team, you know, we really want to give everybody else the opportunity. I think that's what SU is about, is representation and equal representation. And we've all, you know, done our time as well. I think we're all a little bit burnt out, but I think, yeah, as Javid mentioned earlier, that, you know, this is a little bit of a weird circumstance this year. And we had a meeting with Student Services a few days ago, just talking about what's going to happen. And they suggested as well that we kind of stay on for a few months this summer, and also liaising with you guys as well as the new SU, whoever is chosen. Just because there's so many curriculum changes and there's so many meetings that we've been having with staff and already, and they know kind of who we are, and we've been talking to them, and there's a lot of new things going on. So to just throw you guys into that without, you know, kind of a longer layover period would be really hard for you. So I think we all agreed that it was best that we'll be here, and we'll kind of be acting as like the SU, also with liaising with you guys for the next couple months. And then hopefully we're thinking like by the fall, we'll be like, there will be an official date where we're like, bye, and you guys will take over our emails and be in meetings and all that. But definitely don't feel like we're just going to be thrown into everything. We're going to be there like more than usual this year. But yeah, no, we're not going to be running again. So definitely take this time to put together a team. And I know it's different because you can't be meeting with people you know, in person to make teams this year, but don't be shy to message people, even if you don't know them, but if you've heard of them, or if some people are on your team already or suggesting them, don't be shy. Even if, you know, you don't know who they are, just message them and ask them if you can have a Zoom call or something, because it's so important. to reach out and find people who you don't know and who might be different on the team. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
On that as well, I think there was previously, I don't know if there's a solid rule, but you're not really allowed to run consecutively because the SU needs to be neutral. And if you're neutral for a year, an election year, you can't like say, okay, choose this team because I'm on it. So we kind of have to be a neutral body. About asking to join existing teams, I guess that would depend on knowing what teams exist. That's kind of difficult because I would say the best thing to do in that situation is if you know of a team that exists, and I guess that's kind of why we chose to do this, chose to have your email so that you all could kind of get to know each other, and then maybe you could contact some people who you saw was in the list of people that we email and say, you know, are you interested in making a team? And that's kind of your way to get in. As opposed to that, you could actually just make your own team, start your own team, and say, try finding a bunch of like-minded people who would want to be on a team with you, and then you make your own team. Yep. Any more questions anybody else has? Anything anybody else wants to add? More questions? No more questions?
Guys, do SU. Like, I know you are all watching, but like, you know, and you might be on the verge or on the edge of making a decision. I would say do it. I wasn't really sure whether I should do it or not. I was kind of like, I never really intended to be on SU or be involved to that level at all. But I have really enjoyed it and got to, you know, like obviously make great friends, you know, in this group. And I would just really encourage you guys to do it. Especially if you have ideas, if you're actually willing to put a bit of work into this. Like, it's not one of those, you can't coast. You will not be able to coast as the SU. Like, you know, you won't be able to do it. It's kind of, you got to do it. Like, you got to do the work. The students won't let you do it, and the staff will be on your back as well if you're coasting. So, you know, you have to do the work. And then, someone asked me a question. Is VP a separate vote since I'm both societies officer and VP? Traditionally, education officer is VP. We broke that tradition because we again went with, I suppose, who wanted to and who the team thought would be best for each role. We chose VP kind of last. We all went through our different roles, and then we were submitting our manifesto, and we were kind of like, crap, we need a VP. And given, you know, we work a lot as a team, it's something that, you know, there is a, you know, a pseudo hierarchy of roles, president, vice president going down, but really we were all kind of on the same level. I knew Tim beforehand, and I knew we worked really well together, and I knew education, and we both knew education was a huge job on its own, and that vice president required, you know, going to meetings and doing specific things, and kind of working with the president. And I had no problem kind of mediating between the two guys, and kind of informing Tim on anything relevant that was happening in academic council for the students, but also not kind of wasting his time with academic council while he was busy with other things like that. And the same way he would relay things through me, and I would go through Javid, and the same, like, we all kind of work together. But no, it's not a separate vote. It's you to decide as your team who you want to be the vice president. You could be vice president and welfare officer if you wanted to. It's what you guys think will run best in your team. If you guys think there's a good kind of chemistry between two people that should be kind of, you know, put out front. I know Javid checks me when I make mistakes, and I'll check him, and we all kind of like, we can go back and forth, you know, to and fro all day long, and kind of do that kind of thing. And the next bit of there will be a document that we're kind of that we're coming up with now with how to do with, you know, the campaign week. But I believe there is a document, correct me if I'm wrong, the other guys, there is a document on how to write a manifesto or like campaign, well, the campaign guidelines we're going to write, because it's a different kind of a campaign than ever before, because we can't be on campus. And,
yeah, there is a document. not about the roles and about the manifesto, not about the campaign guidelines for this specific situation, but I would say we would want to get that out to everyone probably by the 9th of April. We'll come back to the specific time, but that's the time my exams are finished, so we'll be able to finalize everything. But it should be by within the first week in April, maybe the second week. Don't quote me on that, but that's the time we aiming for, yeah.
I might just add something as well, not from the questions, but like just in general. Two things. One, I know like there's a certain amount of people here that have been attending because you're interested. So don't be shy to like get to know each other and reach out if you want to make a team. But also, like I said before, message people, like ask around, even if you hear a name, message them. And then when you're making your team, I think a really important thing is make sure everyone's fully committed when you ask them and that they don't have any apprehensions. And if they do, make sure you listen to them because, I'm sure people, if you never run for anything like this before, you've never been on society, you might be shy to do it. But last year when we were making a team, Javid and I and Cathal had asked this person who to be on our team, and he was lovely, and he ended up dropping out a couple weeks before our deadline because he just felt he personally didn't think it would suit him and his studying, and he really wanted to focus on his work, which is absolutely fine. But I think it would have been better for us to make sure that we knew everybody was committed from the start, because then we had to scramble to find somebody. So I would say, especially with the timeline that you have, make sure people on your team are willing 100% to be there, because you don't want to be in a position where you're trying to find people last minute, because that's very stressful. But yeah, I mean, and if you guys ever have more questions about specific roles, like I said in the chat, like all of us are here. We're literally doing nothing in self-isolation. Javid's studying because he has an exam. But no, for real, like you can message us at any time, and I'm sure most of us will be more than willing to give you an in-depth kind of answer about what are more specific about what our roles do. And yeah, like I would definitely encourage everybody to run and make a team. Don't be shy.
All right. Ask some questions, but last thing, the thing you need to know right now is this month is your time to make a team. You have a full month to make a team. Start asking people. By the 1st of May, which is the tentative date, we need you all to give us a list of 8 names. And just to reiterate what Tim's saying again, it has to be at least one representative from medicine, pharmacy, and physio. And you have to have a full manifesto explaining what are the plans for each role. So for the education, you need to give us a list of points about what is your plan for education, where you want to change. It doesn't have to be that long, but try and put it in, try and be very sequential in your thinking, and be very thoughtful about your plans. And that has to go for all 8 roles. Other than that, you also have to choose a vice president by that date. And from the 1st of May, then we'll contact you about the actual specific rules in campaigning, like what you can do, what you can't do to the specific teams. And then we'll let you all know the timelines about when the campaign is going to be, when the voting is going to be. But we're going to decide that when we speak to student services later on this month. But yeah, you have a month to come up with a team, ask people, and don't be shy. And the last thing, I guess, is even if you don't have a team right now, it's okay. You have time to make one. I would highly, 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 highly recommend doing it this year as opposed to any other year, just because of the impact that you'd be able to make. So anybody has any more comments from the rest of the team?
Just the fact that you said, you have to have one representative from Physio, Pharm, and Med. That's like hard and fast rules, but you also try to have representatives from different nationalities, different cultures, different, society groups, because at the end of the day, SU is about representation. And as you can see, our team is kind of a mix of everything. And I think that's actually really helped our insight into a lot of different roles and different societies and dealing with different people. And also, you want people to feel represented. That's a big thing. So if you can, I know it's hard this year, but if you can, definitely try to represent everybody in your group, in your team.
this question, the 8 roles. Yeah, we'll tell you what the 8 roles are. I'll type it up here. The treasurer is not always the events officer. The treasurer could be anybody who they want. Jody just felt like she would be able to handle the extra workload. That's why she chose to be treasurer. But treasurer could be anybody. I'll type the roles here. Anybody else want to add anything before we?
Treasurer is just basically and then the reason I chose to do it was also it goes well with events just because you're planning all the events. And you're constantly dealing with money. So like it's an easy one for an events officer to do because they're already like got their nose in the budget all the time. But if anybody else wants to do it, absolutely. It's not a big thing. Like it's mostly just checking up on what our budget is and handling money. Like College Ball, events officers would probably be handling most of the money anyways. But yeah, no, it's not a big deal.
Any last questions from anybody?
Yeah. Okay, we'll wait till Javid writes up those.
Yeah, I typed it in there. We might write up a small little paragraph or two on exactly what the deadline is and the different rules and kind of what is expected from you. Hopefully we'll be able to get that out to you all a little bit later today. And then that might help you all in your quest to find friends to be on a team, but not really friends, but you know what I mean.
Eventual friends, future friends.
Future friends. All right.
Okay, run for SU.
Wash your hands.
Thanks, Eva. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you guys.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Send us any
Bye.
questions via like Facebook or Instagram or whatever if they come up. But happy